This is TWiT.
Mr. Reese, not too long ago, I had a conversation on much this same subject. And what the speaker tried to bring out was we were asking the wrong questions when we think about robots, when we think about robots taking our jobs, that we are so concerned with how we are going to earn a living and how robots are going to take that away from us, when we actually should be focusing on what robots will do to change the relationship we have to work. He had a very interesting idea. This was that we have formed our society around forming workers to fit in the little pegs and pieces that we need to keep our society going, and that once you start introducing robotics and artificial intelligence, you don't necessarily have to do that anymore. You can change the structure of society, and it goes from being a question of where am I going to make my living to what do I want to do? Where do I find my passion? And more importantly, how do I promote society? How do I construct it? How do I make it better? Does this mesh with your idea of the golden age of humanity?
Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily inconsistent. So this person was advocating like a universal basic income or something like that?
Something like that.
Right. I mean, Maynard Keynes, back in the 30s, wrote an article, and he said, in the future, in 100 years, 2030, so we're almost there, the GDP is going to be 8 times higher, and people will only work 15 hours a week. And I assume we've all had this thought, because we say, I have all this technology that increases my productivity. Why am I still working so hard? And so what happened? Like, why is that? Because it turns out he was exactly right with the amount of economic growth we had. And so why aren't we working 15 hours a week? And it turns out that the reason we're not is that if you make, say, $60,000, and you are working 40 hours a week, and you say, I'm only going to work 15 hours a week, then your pay is going to cut down to whatever, $20,000-ish. And it turns out you can live the way a person in 1930 lived on that money. You can live a 600 square foot place, grow most of your own food, no air conditioning, no medical insurance, no college, no vacation. And so you can say, wow. And then if you make half that, you make $30,000 today, and all of a sudden you cut way down. And then you can live the way a person in that economic strata lived in 1930. And again, it's not a good life. It's not a life any of us want, right? And so what has happened is, as GNP has grown and as personal income has grown, we have grown what we expect. We want all this other stuff, and therefore we work just as many hours. Keynes, by the way, died of overwork, so he was probably conflicted of this. But so I think in 2047 or 2048, people are going to say, wait a minute, I can work less, but I'll have to live like they lived in 2018? You mean I'll have to look at the price at stuff before I decide to buy it? And I'm going to have to live in a house that's on the ground, and cockroaches and stuff might come into it, and I'm not going to know what's in all my food.
My phone will be in my pocket and not embedded in my head.
I won't have and then they'll say, no, I'm going to stay late at the fusion plant because I want to make more money. And they're going to keep working 40 hours. So the idea that we're going to somehow fundamentally change everything is based on a notion that AI and robotics are going to create so much wealth, the factories will run themselves. And it's a very old dream. In fact, the play that gave us the word robot, a Czech play 100 years ago, that was the promise. It said, with our robots, the factories will run themselves, everything will be free, is very similar to today. And if that came to pass, I'm sure that things would, economics would change differently. Right. The UBI is not a new idea. I mean, it was advocated by Thomas Paine, one of the founding fathers. Buckminster Fuller thinks this idea of, quote, earning a living is a terrible idea. Like, you have to do something to deserve to live. And so, it's an old idea, but we've never gotten to this point where there's so much wealth that people no longer needed to be involved in the production of it. I write about it extensively in this book. I mean, I talk about the UBI, and again, I kind of put my 3 questions up against it, and And we kind of go through every possible scenario of how it will turn out. One thing that should be noted, though, is that people talk a lot about the increasing gap between the rich and the poor. And I think that may be a little bit, maybe not exactly the thing we should keep our eye on. It is unquestionable that it is easier to make $1 billion today than it's ever been. I mean, not for Me Too, obviously, but Facebook made 6 billionaires, Google made 5. The percent of global billionaires who made their money as opposed to inheriting it goes up every year. That is a thing that I don't think is particularly a bad or good thing. It just happens to be easy to affect 1 billion people's lives and make $1 billion. I think what we should focus on is the absolute living standard of the poor and getting that to go up as quickly as we can. I mean, half the world lives on $3 a day or less. People, the poorest half of this country, I mean, all the stats. They can't afford an unexpected $500 bill. 80% of people say they can't. And I think that's kind of what we should focus on is how do you get more wealth in the hands of the poorest people, both worldwide and in this country. And to talk about inequality, it's the billionaires, I think again, it's a big distraction from what we really want to do, which is bring everybody's standard of living up to as high as we can, frankly.